everybody, welcome. It is Monday night, so that means it's time for another Yard Sign. Your host, as always, Jonny Torres. Thank you so much for watching, whenever, wherever you may be doing so or listening. Don't forget, we do have the audio version of our podcast anywhere and everywhere you may be looking for it. Lots to talk about, great topics tonight, and a great guest as well. So we'll get into who's joining us for tonight's show in just a minute. In the meantime, don't forget, you can sign up, subscribe while we're still allowed to over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and Samsung podcast platforms. You can find the audio version of our podcast there. But if you'd like to see our lovely faces, you can do so at Facebook and YouTube, and you can catch all our episodes there as well. Don't forget, we're also streaming live to Clubhouse right now. If you'd like to join the conversation, search Jonny Torres on Clubhouse or the Yard Sign, and you'll see our room there as we are live on Clubhouse. And you can call in and chime in on tonight's topics. What are those topics, you may ask? Well, here we go. CNN in collapse. They are just having a horrible year as fallout continues from the Cuomo scandals, and so we'll get into the latest on that because it is getting good. Also, canceled culture. It is the monster that has now decided to come back and eat its owner. Whoopi Goldberg going down. It's not even her real name. Going down for some comments she made on The View. The Xi Jinping Olympics, because really that's what they are. They're not the Chinese Olympics. We'll talk about all the drama going on there and why nobody's going to be watching them. Just like the Summer Olympics. And Tech Overlords attack as we continue to see more of these tech companies take political stances in situations around the country. We see them, again, taking the wrong side of the issues time and time again. We'll talk about where that's happening, why it's happening later on in tonight's show. So now it's time to go to the big table and introduce today's guests. Thank you, as always, for joining me from left to right. Anibal, David Cabrera. Hey, sir. Oh, no, it's always my fault.
What's the point?
What's the point?
Oh, look at that. It works. Technology.
Just go home.
You told me to be here. And you yelled at me for being 7 minutes late.
That's right. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Recovering from Cabrera.
Oh my God. And then, and then you went and did Orlando stuff and you did, know.
It's been a hectic, 72 hours, a lot of traveling.
But this time of year in Tampa, it's always like that. It's just tons of events, tons of things going on. Because Gasparilla, most people if you're not from Tampa, you don't realize. 2
to 3 months. It's just nothing but nonstop partying, nonstop events, nonstop charities.
Because we got the marathon coming up.
What's a marathon?
I don't know. I've heard of one. I've never been in one.
I've seen people wake up that early, but I don't.
I've never seen them wake up that early because I'm never up that early. So I've heard the rumor that you typically have to get up early for this sort of thing.
I had no idea I was the third stooge tonight. I've been duped.
But we also got the Festival of the Arts, which is my favorite. I love the Gasparilla Festival of the Arts.
I like the movie festival. I like it.
Never been.
It's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. But
one of our good friends, David Leatherwood, had a movie premiere.
Really?
At the Gasparilla movies.
When?
I think maybe this is pre-COVID. Now that's how time works.
Right.
But I think it was a few years before COVID.
I know it's like PC. It's kind of like BC and AC and. Anyways,
I was waiting for you to get there. By the way,
in the center chair, ladies and gentlemen, joining us is that beautiful face right there is Scott Levinson, candidate for County Commissioner, District 1. Always glad to have you here in the room. And give us a little update. How are things going? How are the phones ringing?
Things the telethon's going good. Okay. We are bowling for dollars.
Okay.
We're just kicking off our big push on fundraising. We have our campaign kickoff coming up.
Cool.
And we're just getting really cranked up. Last time it was a long haul, and I think we've learned a lot.
Sure.
And understand that it's pace, but I'm excited. I guess I'm one of the few that truly enjoy getting out and speaking with people, knocking doors.
Well, you've been doing it for so long. I mean, with the football organization you belong to, you had to engage.
Used to belong to.
Yeah, you had to engage with hundreds of people every single weekend.
Right.
I mean, and I can imagine how exhausting that might be, but great preparation to run for office like you're doing.
It is, and I think it's just I enjoy people, and I enjoy the 99. Not that I don't enjoy the upper 1%, but I really enjoy the 99% that are out there in the streets, that are walking in your malls and your grocery stores, because they have opinions too. And I think so many times in campaigns, and me and my huggable buddy over here, we'll go back and forth at times about this, but there are people out there that might not have the ways or the means, but they have problems. They have voices.
Yep.
And I would like to think that I could give them that avenue, that channel, that other politicians overlook because they might not be able to fund this or fund that.
Well, I think there are also people that, maybe initially, some of these county commissioners, some of these other elected officials, had ties to the community in that way. But over time, I think like anything, like even with Anibal and I, we've been at this political stuff now for well over a decade, if not longer. And you do eventually have to remind yourself that you're kind of in a bubble. Like your perspective and the activities and the people you surround yourself with aren't the way they used to be, especially at the community level, like the people that you would engage with at the youth football league.
No, and I see that, but I want to make sure, and whether I'm the first or I'm just one of many, I want to make sure that I'm not that. Right. And I stay that bubble grounded. Doesn't form around me because I just believe that people in the streets deserve the same attention and the same voice as people donating hundreds of thousands of dollars and giving money to certain causes. Even our county giving money to areas that only 1-2% of the community can even enjoy.
Yeah, the upper echelon of,
right.
I mean, again, we had Luis Vieira in here, city councilman, who, very loudly opposed the $25 million that the city is going to give to the Stratus Center.
I not only oppose it, I'm not so sure it's something that should have even happened in the littlest bit. There are too many people involved in it. It's too much insider.
Yeah.
It's too much this person on that board, that person on this board. And
it's already a world-class facility.
Well, not only that, but how many people in Hillsborough County use it and can afford to use it.
Yeah.
Now, you want to give someone $25 million, $50 million, fine. Then let's sell tickets to the plays. Let's have 1 or 2 nights when Cats is here, that ticket's going to cost you, I don't know. I just threw Cats out there. but or Les Mis. I like Les Mis.
Oh,
I love Les Mis.
There you go.
All right, but it's $100 a ticket.
Yeah.
How about it's the community's tax dollars.
Right.
I think we forget that sometimes when it goes someplace like the Straz, which is so hand-picked. It's community. So why can't we have 1 or 2 nights where Les Mis is $5 a ticket?
Sure.
Where if we talk about extending culture in the Hillsborough County and the city and at large, then involve the people that normally could not afford it. Find a way to give them that same opportunity.
I love when the Florida Orchestra does Pops in the Park. I love when Opera Tampa does Opera in the Park. I think those are great programs. But you're right. To justify the amount of tax dollars that we are giving them, they need to be doing a lot more of that sort of outreach.
I know we're off track a little bit, but another perfect example, splash pads.
Yeah.
Some people love them. Some people hate them. I and most do, but answer me this question. Why are most of the splash pads in the neighborhoods where every 2 out of 3 houses have swimming pools and people can afford to go to Adventure Island and go to these?
Sure.
Why aren't we putting these splash pads in the areas that are lower socioeconomic?
Yeah.
Why? Because they don't have the commissioner's ear.
Well, and I would say maybe the park across the river here. I'm forgetting the name.
Cascading?
No, right there on 275.
Julian B. Lane.
Julian B. Lane. That's probably the exception.
Well, but that's a downtown showpiece.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm talking about the areas where most people never see because they're told don't go there.
East Tampa, perfect
Right.
example.
And those are the areas that need the most help.
Yeah.
And if we talk about the equality and all those buzzwords, then you know what, commissioners, then live where your mouth is and do what you say.
Right. No, because I'm sure the pool at Sulphur Springs probably hasn't been touched in probably 30 years.
It was worked on, but it's just like, like I said, I want to see equity. All our tax dollars is going into that little bubble you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that bubble needs to be popped.
Well, because I think oftentimes what we see is that these city council people, even county commissioners, certainly mayors, we saw it especially with Buckhorn, it's all about their legacy, right? It's all about what they want to say that they had their thumbprint on, that they left behind for the following generations. And I think that's why it gets involved. That's why Julian B. Lane became that downtown showpiece because, again, that was part of Buckhorn's legacy. He wanted to make all these parks happen so that, he could say, well, look at everything I did in Tampa, instead of focusing again on the things that people don't see, like infrastructure.
And I agree. And before I get all these calls, oh, what do you know? You weren't poor growing up. No, I wasn't. I led a very, very nice life growing up. My parents had very nice things, but they also taught me humility and they also taught me how to give back.
Right.
And I chose that way of life. And I have a saying, and then we'll move on because you got me rolling. But but I need money to live. I don't live for money.
Right.
And I think too many politicians do, and it's about time that real people have a chance and a say. Mm-hmm. Okay, right. I'm off my soapbox now.
You can learn more about his campaign, as you see right there on the screen, votescottlevinson.com. That's votescottlevinson.com. And again, he's going to join us for tonight's show as we dive into tonight's first topic, which is CNN in collapse as we continue to see fallout. What a lot of people don't realize is that this Jeff Zucker resignation, and he was the head of the network, had been for well over a decade, came at the heels of the investigation that's currently going on into the firing of Chris Cuomo. Now, there's a rumor that Chris Cuomo may have already received or is about to receive a large payout because he says that he was wrongfully fired. Now, the reason why CNN is probably more excited about writing a check is because it avoids the discovery process. It avoids going into a legal battle. So through arbitration, everybody gets a little bit of money and everybody goes their separate ways. And then, I'm sure eventually he'll backtrack on it and write a tell-all book. But obviously, CNN has been struggling since Trump departed office. They were struggling before Trump came into office and then went right back to struggling when Trump left office. Do we see maybe a future without CNN? Or do you guys think that this new, I don't know if he's just an investor or if he's the head of the Discovery Network, that again, is threatened to get CNN back to its news roots, are they going to be able to save this network or is it, or is that ship sailed? It's okay. Anibal's doing something else over there.
I'm just doing financial reporting. I will say this, from what I have read on the financials of the now parent company Discovery, the individual that you're talking about, that's probably the loudest voice in regards to it, has about maybe 2% of shares. So he doesn't have majority. He can't really do much, but he's on the board. So he's one of 15. So he has a lot of influence on the board. He has a lot of money. He can do a lot. I think right now we all
And
knew.
I think he was a CNN founder, wasn't he?
No, the founder was
Well, I know it was Ted Turner.
yeah. I don't think he was. I think he was friends with Ted Turner. I think he invested with Ted Turner. I don't think he was the main guy. But I will say this: I think the previous CEO was already on the way out by the end of this year, is what they said.
Right.
And so eventually he was going to move on. This is not the reason why they're giving. The reason why he resigned is not the real reason. There's no way that's the real reason.
But that reason being that he was having an inappropriate relationship and had been for a long time with the executive vice president of communications. Both of them had actually divorced their significant others because of this relationship some years ago. Apparently, when Jeff Zucker was at ABC, tried to get her hired there. That didn't work. When he got the job at CNN, his first hire was this woman who, again, for some reason has yet to marry, but they'd been having this relationship, which apparently was the worst kept secret in New York, according to, sources.
They were going to shows into sporting events together. Sitting together is the thing. You want to hear some chisme?
So they're trying to, but they're trying to play it off like he's the bigger man here for resigning over a relationship that he was having.
And she's still at the
what's
CNN.
the cheese?
So the chisme is that they both orchestrated to move into the same building with their families before they got divorced.
Right.
And we're still having affairs in the same building, which is I think is phenomenal. And then once they got caught is when they had to move out of the building.
Gotcha.
And so, everyone in CNN knew about it. That's why it makes no sense when you see Brian Stelter basically crying on CNN because their leader for all this time, literally, he looks like he's getting emotional. He's like, I can't believe this happened. This was completely off guard. I'm like, you had no idea? You are in charge of media integrity at CNN, and you had no idea?
Yeah, well, and apparently, Zucker made it a point to stay very close to his talent.
Yes.
Which is why they're so appalled that he resigned in this fashion. But honestly, like you said, I think he saw the axe
No
coming.
pun intended.
No, I think it was that sort of thing. I think he knew, especially because of what was coming from this owner, this board member. I think he saw the days were numbered, and this was basically the least controversial exit that he could find.
Oh, I don't think he got pushed out because of the new owners. I think he got pushed out because
no. He chose
Chris
to resign.
Cuomo.
Right, but it was because it came up in the discovery that they were already doing.
No,
in the Chris Cuomo investigation.
Who was the chick that wrote? Who was the chick that wrote an all inclusive
last
year? She used to work at CNN.
Chick. He didn't mean chick. He meant woman or lady.
Her pronouns are he she or he she she her
Jeez.
her
Oh
she.
my gosh.
Someone she wrote an autobiographical, and in there she name checked Zucker and the girl having an affair, and no one cared then. And you're telling me that they care about it now?
First of all,
Well, because Cuomo threatened that he was going to kind of let all the secrets out.
Yeah, okay.
If he didn't get a payout for the remainder of his contract.
Are they married? Is Zucker married?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Okay, and is this woman married?
No.
So how isn't it an inappropriate
Exactly.
affair?
It's not technically inappropriate. He just did not disclose
Inappropriate
it.
from the sense that he is her boss.
Not technically, no.
Yeah, because she's an executive vice president. He's
Yeah, but that's the
CEO of the
thing.
network.
I actually read the clause. If she was like cameraman 2, then yes, it would be a problem. Or she was someone's secretary, she's a problem. But she's a C-level suite individual, so technically, no, it's not an issue.
She's more of a God, what's the word?
I'm thinking about it. I cannot.
Girlfriend. Well, I mean, folks.
No, like when you.
I mean, I'm sorry. Again, we're talking about cancel culture. A divorced man, or forget the word divorced, a single man is having, we're calling it an affair. It's not an affair. It's a single man.
It was an affair.
It was not an affair. Well, yes, it was an affair at one point.
Okay, but now it's a single man and a single woman. I don't know how long they've been together. how many years or whatever.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But I do not believe that this is why he resigned.
No, I agree with
believe
you.
this is a
It's
convenient
convenient,
yes.
excuse because what is wrong with him having a relationship with an eligible woman?
He is protecting himself from getting tossed out
Yeah.
by
Right.
by the new owners of the network.
Now,
I don't think that's the
do you
case.
want
I
to
don't
tell
think
me
that's the
he's
case.
worried about a
So you-
cover up on other things? Do you want to tell me that he's aware of sexual harassment maybe that has been brought to his attention,
That's
that he is
possible.
covered up for people that work at the station, things like that?
You're probably correct because
I would believe that, and this is a convenient excuse. I do not believe Jeff Zucker is bailing on CNN because he is having a relationship with this woman. I have not seen a picture of this woman.
so evidently
So I
she's
don't-
age appropriate. That's another thing. She's age appropriate. She's in the C-suite with him.
Right.
So
Wait,
it's not
what
like
is age
that's-
appropriate?
I think she's like 49.
Oh my God.
For his age, she's age appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, that it wasn't like some
I'm older than he is.
right, but it wasn't like some young
Secretary.
talent that was kind of up and coming.
It wasn't Monica Lewinsky.
Legal aid.
Correct.
Yeah. So Megyn Kelly.
Definitely not.
Megyn Kelly earlier this week or late last week was like, look, there's definitely a second shoe. And she's like multiple shoes to
Yeah.
fall. So we all know this something's going to happen. There was also evidently it was a meeting with Jake Tapper and I think Don
Chris
Lemon
Wallace.
and Chris Wallace talking about how they're going to move forward with this because Chris Wallace just left Fox,
Yeah.
thinking that he was going to have a good time at CNN.
making a ridiculous amount of money
Where are they getting all this money?
for something that's going to fail.
CNN.
I mean,
Plus.
I don't watch CNN for free, much
No.
less going to pay for
The
it.
only time I ever watch CNN is when I'm in a lobby or am I going through
Airport.
the airport.
Which a lot of airports don't even carry
Not
that.
anymore because they're so divisive.
Right.
Now it's just the weather, which is what I want to do when I'm at the
Yeah.
airport. I want to see what the weather is. But again, I am so excited. I could just imagine if you're like an executive at Fox News, also coming to find out more Democrats watch Fox News than CNN
Apparently.
and MSNBC combined.
Apparently, Tucker Carlson's largest demographic
Democrats.
is Democrats.
Girl.
Well, it's the Howard Stern. It's the people that like Howard Stern listen to him for an average of 21 minutes a day. People that can't stand Howard Stern listen to him for 52 minutes a day.
Yeah,
Hey.
right.
I agree with that.
So,
there are
yeah.
many times when I'm listening to Crystal Ball on Breaking Point, and I'm like, I get so upset and so frustrated with her point, but I listen.
Any
I
chance
listen.
Rachel Maddow will be going?
I will never listen to Rachel Maddow. That woman
No.
is absolutely absurd, and she's also leaving MSNBC.
Yeah,
it's just
to
like,
go
what?
where?
well, to work on it. Yeah, she apparently is going to be working on a special project with Jon Stewart. Is it? No,
He's going to be directing. No,
Or
not
Oliver.
John.
Oh, that's great.
It's another.
or is it Oliver? What's
not
his
Oliver.
face from HBO? What is this? What's this whispering going
Is
on?
it Oliver Stone?
No, it's
No,
not
it's
Oliver
not
Stone.
Oliver Stone.
Think of another.
John Oliver in HBO. John Oliver, who used to be at Comedy Central. with
I
Jon
do
Stewart.
not. Rachel Maddow has more opinions than anybody I've ever heard that are wrong. Have you ever noticed one thing about her, though? Can you email her? No. Can you text her? No. She has no way of responding to her. You know how most of them have their own
Social media stuff.
right? If you have any comments on the show tonight,
Oh, they don't care. They don't care
she
what everybody
has
else thinks.
zero.
Again, these are intellectual elitists that think that they're better than everybody else.
You think you're better than me?
That's right.
Think you're better than me? Which camera are we on? You think?
What kind of an accent is that?
I don't know.
That,
I don't
that
do, I
wasn't
don't do
even
accents very
that was
well.
a cross between Italian and
Like Scarface Cuban. It wasn't even like good Cuban, but like
no,
it was like De
I
Niro
sounded like a
Cuban.
Cuban.
No,
no, you really
like Al
didn't.
Pacino Cuban.
Not even.
I only have one dialect that I can do wearing this scarf in the manner that I am wearing.
I don't.
We'll get to
I
that
don't
in a
even wanna
moment.
know. Well, part of all this, again, and in reality, it seems like is kind of a collapse of the liberal media. As big news broke about a week ago with Whoopi Goldberg making a horrible statement about the Jewish community on The View. Ironically, her last name is not Goldberg, but yet she continues to adopt that name, even as insulting as she's been, to the Jewish community. And this is not the first time she's caused controversy. Remember when her and Ted Danson did blackface and whiteface?
Yes.
I thought that was
like years
hilarious.
ago. Anyways, so they gave her a slap on the wrist. They are suspending her for 2 weeks, and hey, go take a little break.
She's not getting suspended. She's on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's that sort of thing that they do it to the right all the time, right? Look at everybody that
they fire
that they've canceled, or fired for inappropriate comments on the right.
I mean, I will say this
for far less, by the way.
Right. As a Jew, I will say this. Do I think she should have been disciplined? No. I don't believe in that. She had an opinion. It was a little off base. I don't think she understood what Hitler's goal was to create an Aryan race, and in order to do that, you had to get rid of the Jewish race,
right?
In his mind, along with others. But I do, in her messed up vision of this, I did get what she was saying.
The nuance.
She was saying is if you are walking by two people, one is black, one is white, I have no way of knowing this one's Jewish. I understand that, but the context that she tried to relate it in by saying the
truthfully,
Holocaust,
nowadays you wouldn't know if either one of them is Jewish.
Well, no, but to say the Holocaust had nothing to do with race, that to me is not anti-Semitic. That is anti-intelligent and ignorant.
Yeah.
But
people on The View are having ignorant comments.
First of all, the fact that show exists the name itself states The View. This is Whoopi's view, no matter how whacked it is.
Right.
I want, and kudos to Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck. They are two of her biggest defenders on this, and I sort of agree with them. Leave her on the show, and hopefully the ignorance will be replaced by education.
But this is the thing. You can't have a nuanced conversation on a show that only has like 3 to 8 minute segments. Yeah. You can have that show on Joe Rogan. You can have that conversation on Joe Rogan and have it unpacked in the span of 3 hours.
Right.
And that can be done there. That's what Joe Rogan is all. That's what that kind of format is for.
But then that's also
you can't talk about the Holocaust at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that's also why these attacks on Joe Rogan have failed. Because anyone who has listened to his show has realized that there is far more context that's being edited out of these conversations than what's actually being acknowledged as being offensive.
Your 30-second highlight that you're seeing on CNN because they're trying to bash him for something is so out of content. It's almost painful to watch how difficult, and which has already happened again.
But that's why these chickens have come home to roost, because inevitably they are going to screw up as well. And for years now, they've been canceling and deplatforming conservatives for things that, again, they deemed offensive when they weren't. And so, but now we're supposed to take the high road and say, hey, let's leave Whoopi alone. Let's let her continue to say stupid things, because we stand for freedom of speech and all that. And I get it, and I agree with that. But the problem is that we're never going to get that sort of treatment.
I know, but at the end of the day, it's you're not going to get it. So there's no reason to be that person.
I heard an interesting thing today about Al Franken. When we look back at what he did, how trivial is all that for what happened, what his ultimate punishment was. Someone brought up today, if he wasn't Jewish, would he have gotten punished that hard?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But again, I think we're bringing race into something that's right.
That was never meant to go into politics.
Well, people have said that about me too.
I know. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Well,
Here we are.
I think this is a good time for a segue, Jonathan.
Yeah. So again, and those I think are much more closely related as we continue to talk. We were just talking about Rachel Maddow, leaving NBC for a while. MSNBC, again, nobody's even paying attention to them anymore. Nobody even talks about them anymore.
Have you seen their lineup?
Their ratings are in the tank.
Their lineup for the evening and afternoon is dismal. And the only thing they did in the morning is that they increased Joe. What was his name? Morning with Joe.
Oh yeah.
From 3 hours to 4 hours. So
Right.
it's because there's nothing else.
Does James Earl Jones
Scarborough.
even do the
Scarborough.
CNN voice anymore?
I don't know. I knew it was gone for a while because what a lot of people didn't know is they were actually using it. They were using it they had used it without his permission. And he just kind of was cool with it, and so they kept using it, but they never actually got anything
Official.
official. And then years later, they finally, I think, got him to actually re-record it, and so they may still use it from time to time. But I mean, anyway, so
That a boy Mufasa.
we're going to continue. Again, all this stuff comes back around. It's kind of like the argument about the filibuster. The Democrats were the ones who brought back the filibuster, and now, they're crying wolf because they want to get rid of it. Same with this cancel culture. It's going to start taking liberals out, and they're going to then finally back off because they're realizing that it's all backfired on them. So, again, aside from, your establishment media, being in a crisis, along with, and that includes newspapers, and all the major TV networks. I think you're going to continue to see that, especially with, these cable news networks that have marginalized themselves into these very, very specific audiences. And the only ones that are going to survive, I think, are the ones that go back down the middle. So let's get into our next topic. Again, thank you, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. We had a little bit of a tech issue with Clubhouse. I'll get that back up and running here in a second. But don't forget, you can find the audio version of this podcast if you missed any of it over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and Samsung podcast platforms. Thank you again, Scott Levinson, candidate for Hillsborough County Commission District 1. Vote ScottLevinson.com if you want to find out more about his campaign. And Anibal David Cabrera joining me on tonight's show. We now want to get into the Xi Jinping Olympics, or as some people want to call it, the Beijing Winter Olympics.
I call it the Winnie the Pooh Olympics. I think that is because he does not like the character Winnie the Pooh. And so what
Who doesn't like Winnie the Pooh?
The supreme leader of China does not like Winnie the Pooh, and
That's how you know he's a horrible person.
And he's actually gotten people arrested for because what they used to do, instead of saying his name on the internet, they would just say Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, funny!
Because he kind of looks like it, so it's really funny. But yeah, here we, as of right now, Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk. Are we allowed to talk about China right now with the Olympics? Because she told us not to talk about it.
I know we're going to get deplatformed.
It was bound to happen.
Our episodes are going to get demonetized.
I would love for them to be monetized.
I know. We'd have to get monetized first before we could get demonetized.
You all been duping me on something here for a while. Didn't we just say I need money for a campaign here?
Scott, you've never cashed the check that we gave you, so you just...
Okay.
I mean,
whose fault is that? Folks, that's a lie.
Whose fault is that?
We were wondering why those checks were just sitting there.
Oh no, they would have got cashed real quick.
But we all knew this was coming. I mean,
I have a pain in the butt campaign treasurer.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Trust me, it would.
Yeah,
that guy is a horrible person. So bad.
Can't focus.
I think he's brown. I don't know.
This show is just
Probably.
really...
It shows in his work ethic.
Oh yeah, he's always like it's bad. It's bad. I don't know. You should fire him.
So, getting back to the Xi Jinping Olympics, I mean, again, we know, obviously, the world's political elite are corrupt. They're corrupt to no end. We see it every day with the United Nations. Is anyone really surprised about what's happening? They're trying to arrest journalists on the street.
During live broadcasting.
Yeah, in the middle of a live broadcast.
That is classic.
Phenomenal.
That is classic.
That's
First
classic
of all,
communism.
as I said, can we hold it at least in a city where it snows?
Oh, is that happening? I'm not paying attention.
What they've had to, we're not kind of paying attention either. We're kind of boycotting these as well. We didn't watch the opening. our household are fanatics when it comes to the Olympics, and we chose not to watch anything this cycle because I don't feel it's appropriate. I know what's going on in some parts of that country. We have friends that still live there that are trying to slowly move their assets out of the country, and it's sad to see what's happening. So I don't want to watch it. And the news reports are like going crazy right now. Like some athletes have been in quarantine for 2 weeks now. Some of them haven't seen anyone. They're getting negative tests. They're getting positive tests and negative tests. Like it's a mess, and then they're having to ship snow into these venues, which is now causing problems because the athletes are not used to playing in synthetic snow,
right?
And that's causing huge problems. So this is just a mess, and it couldn't have happened to a worse country.
I was in China, spent a lot of time in China back in the 90s. When I was purchasing seafood and shrimp over there. And it is an amazing country. What would normally take us a 1 hour car trip over here, some of the places over there are so remote, the roads, you still have oxen cart. Took 6-7 hours. But I will say this, and I know it, we hear it a lot, but the people that I met there, the people, the citizens, they are no happier about what goes on there than anyone else.
And I've also heard, though, that being there, you don't quite feel the oppression. You don't quite see it or feel it. It feels like you're in just any other country. At least based on some of the business people I've talked to, they say, of course, it's a beautiful country. But it's not what you would expect it to be based on everything that we know is actually going on.
It's changed. The business end of it has changed quite a bit since the change of Hong Kong. Everything used to run through there, based out of there, and we see what's happening there. But it was, when I was there again, it was in the 90s. There were beautiful parts of that country.
Yeah.
And the people were amazingly friendly. I've been to France where the people are not friendly to Americans.
Yep.
And it's just... It was a different world, different culture.
Yeah, the new leader who is trying to make himself as a dictator, honestly, with him rewriting the Constitution there, has really changed the atmosphere of how that country was run, how those people have treated themselves, and now you're really seeing the chickens come to roost when it comes to their manipulation, when it comes to the demographics, their manipulation when it comes to financials, the demographic, the manipulation of just feeding their people. It's become outrageous how bad it's gotten.
Mao Zedong. That's where you're back.
Yeah, and you're back there. So now we're gonna see, what does the world look like when China is no longer the manufacturing hub of the world? We're basically going back to where the world was 40 years ago.
It's also thanks to the United States that they became that.
Yeah, the only reason why this is in any way, shape, or form is because we allowed them to join the WHO,
right,
which is another stupid UN organization that went completely out of hand. And now you're seeing the ramifications of it. So now people, again, and I say this all the time, the West and some other nations had 100, 200 years to develop. And it was a slow develop. China developed in 30 years. And yeah, that's nice and it's shiny and it looks all pretty, but that's not how you sustain an economy. And so now you see what happened with Japan. Japan had the same kind of thing. It blew up.
But this is why again you create there's so much skepticism around, not to kind of bring in COVID as a whole different topic, but this is why
it blew up twice.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Why would you have this person represent your campaign in any way?
Japan blew up.
You didn't let me finish my statement. I had to stop there. Japan's economy blew up 30 years ago. And they were still dealing with it 3 decades.
For those
a little more than 30 years ago. But,
for those families and people involved in World War II.
What happened in the late 40s?
For those involved in World War II, we do apologize for Anibal. and his insensitivity
collapse
to the people of Japan.
Of the late 90s. I'm not talking about.
Oh my god!
I can't breathe.
All right, but back to the topic.
Scott Levinson is no longer running for county commissioner with this.
We're now well over 2 years old with this COVID stuff. While we allow Anibal to gather himself.
Oy vey.
Why would we hold an Olympics in the country where it originated? It's again, if they were truly that concerned over the global impact of COVID.
Because they have the best lockdown in the world.
No, if you've seen the movie,
I know the people have been protesting it.
If you have seen the movie Mulan, you'll understand that there is honor that needs to be taken place when it comes to the Chinese culture. And there was no way that they were going to allow the Olympics not to go any way, form going forward. Now, that's great. You wanted to go through, you can go through it, but it's going to be a shit show the entire time. The athletes are all complaining. The media is getting sequestered, and people are watching on TV and like, what on earth is going on there?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the ramification. They want to go through it. They can go through it.
Well, after it was such a horrible display 2 years ago, when there was nobody in the stands, there was nobody at these games.
But you have a government that spent, I think, like $5 or $10 billion on infrastructure and everything in Tokyo for the Japanese government, and they got walloped in the recent election. So they really got played on that. But they had already waited 1 year, hoping that things would slow down. Nothing slowed down, and you had to have the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. It had to get done.
I watched
You didn't have to. I mean, we've skipped some.
There's too much. We've only skipped it for like World War II.
But I think a global pandemic might have been a good time to skip one.
We did.
No, they just pushed
it back.
That's not skipping it.
Hey.
Wait, guys, we boycotted the Moscow Olympics.
But we didn't boycott the Munich Olympics.
Why would we have boycotted the Munich? That was in
'Cause Hitler was in power.
Yes, Hitler was in power during those Olympics.
You're talking back in Jesse Owens' days.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking the 72.
No. That was also during the height of the Cold War. Or do you want to say that we're
that
going
was
that direction
the whole Israeli weightlifting team and the tragedy with that. But I just holding I watched the reruns of the Westminster dog show last night instead of the Olympics.
But that's the thing. It's like
I really did.
It's like what is the IOC doing? I mean, they had Russia host, and now they have China host. I mean, again, it's like is the corruption truly that bad to where it's? I mean,
does FIFA have a corruption problem?
Yeah, well,
no. Does the NFL have a corruption problem?
No.
Yeah.
No. Just ask them.
No. They're great. You're great people.
Yeah.
Just ask them.
Next thing you know, the NBA is going to be having their championship games in China.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's coming, by the way.
I wouldn't be surprised. I will say this. I think now, when it comes to it takes almost a decade to get yourself ready for the Olympics. So you can't just cancel it and give it to someone else. Unless you're Denver. Exactly. We'll take that in a heartbeat. So that can be done. But I think in the future, the IOC is going to have to make a better decision upon this. But at the end of the day, the IOC is probably paid off extremely well by the Chinese government.
Well, they're also saying that they're going to stop giving it to countries that can't truly financially and infrastructurally.
You're going to tell China that they can't financially organize this?
China would obviously be an exception. I'm saying other countries that again don't have the infrastructure or the resources to host an Olympics. But then again, it's severely.
So it won't be in Trinidad or Tobago.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to severely limit who can host, but I think that's the way it should be. I mean, especially when a lot of these countries, like we saw in Brazil, are severely neglecting their people and in many cases displacing hundreds, thousands of people to create these sports infrastructures, these sports venues that go unused for decades.
It doesn't matter. You know why it doesn't matter? Because if Saudi Arabia and another majority Muslim country can chair the Women's Rights League of the UN and no one have a problem with that, then you know what? It's never going to happen. The IOC is always going to give it to countries that they feel that can make the Olympics happen, because that's the point of the Olympics committee. And if it's like Oman having the FIFA World Cup in the middle of summer. Are you crazy?
Guys.
Do you know how many? That's the second largest slave organization in the Middle East right now. It's basically right there with the pyramids.
You brought up one of the biggest oxymorons we live under, and that's United Nations.
Oh, I have my own place about that.
I mean, that's just...
Yeah.
The UN hasn't paid a parking ticket in over 2 decades, and that's becoming a problem. Those people have so much arrogance. It's absolutely
If I was the city of New York, I would tax the heck out of them.
Why? You have all the dignitaries and UN and world leaders coming to
where
your
else
city
are they going to go?
To the most democratic part of the country.
Exactly. But I'd tax the hell out of them. I'd fine the hell out of them. And that way, and then you put that money towards their horrific subway system, which continues to have, catastrophic issues.
But yeah, it's the most expensive in the country.
All right, let's go ahead and bring it back home, everybody, as our final topic gets it back at least to our hemisphere. Jonny Torres, thank you so much for watching The Yard Sign. Scott Levinson and Anibal David Cabrera joining me on tonight's show. And as we bring in tonight's final topic, we're looking at what's happening just north of us, in America's hat, if you will. Canada, of course, experiencing the truck convoy as Justin Trudeau continues to hide out in the bunker, allegedly recovering from COVID. It is GoFundMe within a matter of, I think, about 48 hours. It committed one of the biggest blunders that they've done since the summer of BLM, and only they got away with it back then. This time, they tried to cut off the almost $10 million that had been raised for the trucker convoy in Canada, and they were claiming that they were going to redistribute those funds to nonprofits of their choice. How convenient. Luckily, we have some common sense governors here in the state of Florida and in the United States, where GoFundMe is based out of, who threatened them with investigations into fraud because of these practices. And so GoFundMe quickly reversed course and said that they would then refund anybody who had donated money to the trucker convoy because they did not want to be associated with a pretty much entirely peaceful protest, contrary to BLM, where, again, a lot of those devolved into riots throughout the country last summer. So, laying down the kind of groundwork for that, I mean, we're continuing to see these tech overlords, which, when I talk about our podcast, it's slightly tongue-in-cheek, but the truth is again, these guys could have legitimately shut down that entire protest, with one decision, which was to take all their funding. Now, obviously, yes, it's illegal to raise funds under one premise and then use it for another.
And if it was the issue, then I could understand them having a problem with it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what was happening. They had actually released $1 million to the organization. And they said, and originally the excuse was, the reason why we're holding the funds right now is because that's an actual ridiculous amount of money that was raised in, I think, in less than a week.
Yep.
So that they wanted a plan and a budget to where the funds were going.
But they were also claiming that it had become a violent protest.
But that's what I'm saying. That was the original excuse for why they were holding the money. And the trucker organization, okay, no, that makes sense. We'll send you our information. We'll get you with our treasurers and everyone else, our bankers, to go forward. And then it came about that because of the police department in the capital city in Canada was saying that they were causing so many problems and violence and causing disruptions, that money should go back to the city to pay for the what's happening on the street.
Right.
And then they went into defense mode at the company, and they were, okay, no, we're not going to give it to them. We're going to give it to a charity of their choosing. They can choose a charity, but we're not going to give it to truckers. And then that's when everything blew the hell up.
Right.
And governors in Florida and other states were like, we're going to sue you because you can't do this. This is false. Literally, this is illegal what you're doing. And if you go through with it, it's going to all fall apart. And so this is, for me, I think it was all about the money and about BLM, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was about the money. Why would they want, because if they give you a refund, they don't get the service charge.
Oh, no, I think it was all about the fraud investigation.
I think it was because I think they wanted the money, because it was almost like, I think it was like $400,000
well, they did want the money,
that they were going to get for fees alone.
Yeah.
And so, no, we're not going to refund everyone back. We're just going to give it to another charity, and we're going to take the fee. And then they got pushback from the governors and from the AGs, and that's what pushed them to say, we'll just refund everyone. And this allowed for that other company. Do you remember the name of the other, like, GoFundMe company? I don't either.
But it goes back to the larger
but
point.
they've
Very
raised
simple.
I know, but
It's
that
like-
new company has raised $4 million in the span of like a day.
Right.
Yes.
So-
but this is on the heels of also Facebook eliminating all the trucker convoy
Yeah.
groups off of Facebook. I mean, again, you have these tech giants, these tech overlords dictating
Exactly.
what they deem is right and wrong in this country when that's not the rules we play by.
Who would have expected that Facebook is manipulating people's decisions and organizations? And this is actually the first quarter that Facebook has lost population growth. Now, duration on the page has increased, but the population growth has decreased in Facebook's history.
Yeah.
Which is, again, you guys are
Daily visitors
You guys
is the number that decreased.
You guys are making things so much difficult. Why did you not take down how ISIS still has a Twitter account? I have no idea.
Right.
And this is the hypocrisy that people don't
But
understand.
then you go over to YouTube, and Dan Bongino can't say that cloth masks are useless, okay? Because that was the reason apparently that they used
Give to Go. Give to Go is the
There
organization.
you go.
Dan Bongino claimed that the cloth masks were useless, and supposedly that was why he was deplatformed from YouTube. But then at the same time, I mean, again, you have these nefarious organizations, Antifa, and others that go out there, cause actual violence and harm, BLM included in that, and again, they see no repercussions for any of their actions. And so they're essentially usurping what is not only our civil rights, but also the laws that we live under.
The government's here to make sure that it's an equal level field. That's what the government should be doing. And the fact that it took governors what the federal government should be doing to push back on this, because the money probably money from the states went up to Canada. First of all, how pissed off must Canadians be to be protesting? I have never. I have a story, and Johnny knows the story of a time that I was in South Africa for a missions trip, and we had a Canadian on the mission trip. And for the life of me, I was like in middle school. For the life of me, I wanted to see if I could get a Canadian to curse, and that was my mission on this missions trip. And it took 4 days. Of
the mission within the mission.
4 days of sleep deprivation to get her to snap. It wasn't even me that made her snap. It was like someone asking her for something at like 7 o'clock at night, and she went off and walked away into the bush. And like a few hours later, she came back. Thank God. But I was like, it takes forever to get Canadians pissed.
Yeah.
Wait. She walked off into the bush.
Well, we're in Africa, so.
Now, do either one of us believe he was out in the bush?
No, yeah, we were in Cougar National, and we were there. We did a whole we did
dig a well, build a church.
No, we did a recreation of the Lion King in the morning when the sun was coming up.
You grabbed someone's poor little tabby.
No,
cat,
I didn't grab
you?
someone. We were working with an orphanage, and I lifted one of the kids up into the air.
Oh,
with the.
Well, that's a lot more classy than my venture. I spent 45 days on the Serengeti when I was a 11-year-old with my family on a hunting safari.
Yeah.
So his was probably a little more giving.
Yeah. But, again, going back to, where does this stop? I mean, again, I'm one for small government, but at some point, I think, that these tech companies, they either have to be told this is who you can and can't deplatform. They have to be given the guidelines under which they make these decisions, or it's only going to continue to get worse.
They have to be allowed to be sued. That's what has to happen. You have to allow this to be litigated into oblivion.
Why can they do it with TV and radio?
Mm-hmm.
Because the airwaves over which they transmit are technically owned by the government.
Okay.
Yeah, so the radio, the radio airwaves, the cable, the over the air, they all lease those airwaves and those frequencies.
Well, if
from
you're
the
going
government.
to say that, and I don't want to get in deep and
I'm just
and
telling
all
you that's
that,
what it
but
is.
if we're going to accept, okay, they are owned by the government, we go back to the government and the Constitution, then something owned by the government should be more prone to be freedom of speech, the First Amendment, but yet we're not.
That's why some people say that they should be regulated like utility companies.
That's going too far, though. I think that's going too far. I think us changing, I don't remember the code in regards to changing them from a blanket to where they have no recourse.
Platform to publishers.
Yes, that changing them to publishers is what really needs to happen. And then there's a lot more accountability in regards to that. But this is a pure example of how the tyrannical those liberal executives are making decisions that they were perfectly fine allowing happen a year and a half ago during the riots and during entire breakdowns of civilization into society in this country, and they were perfectly fine allowing for GoFundMe to bail out criminals, GoFundMe to pay for unoccupied areas. I mean, that's what and you know what?
That's the biggest problem, is the hypocrisy of how they implement their policies.
Have you ever been deplatformed, kicked off?
No, I think I was like
suspended,
like quasi suspended for a week.
Oh no, I've never been suspended.
Yeah,
I haven't, which means we're not trying hard enough.
Honestly, I'm not trying.
Yeah, I mean, but it's.
My things are champagne problems. They're not going to get kicked. I'm not getting kicked off of the platform because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe you should be able to threaten anyone.
Right, but there are people who have been deplatformed, and I've seen it. I've seen even liberal friends of mine who have been suspended or deplatformed, because people will accuse them of harassment or accuse them. They'll report their accounts and that sort of thing. But the thing is that, especially right now, when you're not allowed to question the CDC, you're not allowed to question the White House, you're not allowed to question, what's happening in regard to something like COVID. Okay, again, people have been deplatformed, people have been suspended, people have been, the Trump, look at the president. President Trump again they almost completely, took him off entirely from social media. It's like, and again, who gives them that right to do it?
I don't want this to happen, but I want him to become president. I want him to run and become president again, just so that Twitter has to explain why they're not letting the president of the United States back onto the platform.
But they suspended his account while while he was still president.
No, I think it was right after he was no longer president.
I know it was close to.
Yeah. And he said something ridiculous, and they're like, okay, this is it. But again, this is what pisses off the country. You're not playing fair. You're not being fair when it comes to what you do on your platform. And you know what? Odds are the same thing that happened with Robinhood when they weren't playing fair with their base. Now GoFundMe has done the same thing, and you're going to find other people and other organizations and other companies that will come up like, well, give, send, go. It's very simple. It's probably going to copy completely what it's going to do. And you know what? They're probably going to be a very profitable company for a very long time because they were willing to take the heat. And again, you cannot go one way or the other. That just tells us the bias that you have. And I agree with Jonathan. The fact that at one point of time you couldn't talk about cloth masks being a preventable or not, or saying that the vaccine didn't saying that the vaccine didn't prevent you getting COVID was you would get kicked off platforms.
Right.
And now we all know that the vaccine was never designed to stop you from getting it. It just prevented you from getting a severe case and getting hospitalized.
Right.
Why is that so difficult to communicate?
Especially when the science isn't firm on it.
Oh my gosh.
The science has been evolving, and we get that, but they won't even admit to that.
Oh my!
They just keep moving the goalposts and think nobody's noticing.
And Fauci has lied multiple times. He says it. Oh, I said it. I said we didn't need to get masks because I didn't want there to be a run on masks. That's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job isn't to tell me what I should think. Your job is to tell me the truth, and that's the problem. And then he lies about other things. And I can't wait. And now you're hearing it.
Well, they lied about the origin.
But now you're hearing now you're starting to hear it percolate about the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
And how much responsibility he has for the millions of people that died because of misinformation.
Right.
The fact that he was spreading misinformation about the AIDS epidemic, saying that it was going to wipe out one out of 5 heterosexual men in the country. That's what he said it was going to do. So instead of the testing and the research and going to the appropriate populations and communities that AIDS was affecting, everyone was getting the hysteria, and it caused multiple people and the suffering. So it's the electorate. When you get brought down because of sex scandal, not because of the 50,000 elderly people that died in long-term healthcare facilities, I don't know what to say. This
The fact that he not only still has a job, but it still has any kind of medical credentials is appalling. But I'm sure it's not going to be the end of that. So thank you, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. I feel bad. We had Hector here in our clubhouse room. Let's see, Hector. You there, Hector? Oh, he's got himself muted. But thank you, everybody. Oh, there we go. You there? Can't hear him for some reason.
Hello.
There we go.
Hey,
How's it going, guys?
hey, sir.
I'm good, man. Here's my opinion on the whole cancel culture / CNN thing. It's just that people got tired of it. I think people got tired of, even for example, comedy. Look at comedy. You think Louis C.K. could get away with the stuff he was getting away with back in 2010? Do you think, Artie Lang, if you listen to Artie Lang's records from 2009, 2010, you think you get away with all those jokes?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The comedy is actually kind of the last line. That's the last line of defense for free speech. I mean, and kudos to those guys, for not taking political sides on this, because they could easily sit back and just kind of let it play out, being that they're mostly liberal. But they also know that this is their livelihood, and an attack on free speech is an attack on their art, on their craft.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to a little bit to kind of the beginning of the show when Mr. Levinson was talking about, access to parks and things of that nature, dealing with Julian B. Lane Park. Well, the thing with Julian B. Lane Park was that's kind of whitewashing basically the biggest stain on the history of the city, the history of the government of the city of Tampa, because what was there before Julian B. Lane Park? Central Avenue. That was the center of the African American community in Tampa. What happened then was that they said, hey, we're going to have 275 come through Tampa. What did they decide? The community they chose to, pave out of existence was Central Park. The city of Tampa, along with the county, basically began a forced migration operation, which is how Progress Village came to be. Yep. The facts are there. I mean, so
Hector, you're very right. I was very involved in the development of building of the original football fields in Progress Village. But if we all agree history repeats itself, redistricting, what they did to Gwen Myers is just the beginning of it. They're getting ready to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, how could you not? After they raised all the affordable housing that was there on the north side of 275, now Ybor, everything, they're just now raising all of that, but obviously it's been shut down and empty now for about 3-4 years.
Yeah,
because they were all waiting for the big payday from the Rays, thinking that the stadium was going to be coming in,
Which might actually do.
It still might happen, but again, it's they can. And what's even crazier is that the people behind these decisions will continue to get elected time and time again.
Well, and Hector's right. The fallacy was, we're going to build this beautiful park for your community. The problem, Hector, is, like you said, they move the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and even those, I'm sure those homes right across the street aren't going to be there much longer. It's only a matter of time before those
entire.
No, because here's what I think also is going on with city with your elected officials, especially in city government. They don't realize that in spirit, Tampa, all right, is taking a phrase from Bo the Love Sponge Clem, is a ham and egger kind of town. This isn't a Miami. This isn't a Fort Lauderdale. This isn't West Palm Beach. This isn't even Orlando. This is Tampa. It's more middle class. It's more working class. I mean,
we're a front
look at the figures that
community.
Look at the people that came out, the famous people that came out of this community: Hulk Hogan, Wade Boggs, Fred McGriff. We have Al Lopez. We don't have Lou Piniella, for Christ's sake.
Gary Sheffield.
Gary Sheffield.
Let's just start naming some.
It
so-
feels like they're trying to make the city into like a Miami, into
Exactly.
something of a
They're
South
trying to make-
Florida.
that's what I've been
Well, that's
saying for
because
the
all
past
these
10
elected
years.
officials, that's what they all aspire. That's what they all
I
want to build.
love-
It's
They want all these
aspirational.
white concrete condominiums towers to be built.
Oh, of course.
right off the shore of where Blake High School is.
Because
I saw
to them,
that.
that
I'm like,
represents
I'm like,
success.
what
So that-
on earth are you thinking? Allowing
I
that to
love
be
that
built on
analogy.
Bayshore? Or not Bayshore? Blake?
No, I love that analogy though. Ham and egger. I call it, and that's better than what I call it, a front porch community.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are. But it goes back to what I said about the 1%. 1% of our county is dictating to the rest of us because we have yet to wake up and realize we have a voice.
Absolutely. I've been saying that to a lot of the Hispanic community because, right now, there's no Hispanics in the county commission.
Mm-hmm.
There's one Hispanic in city council in the city of Tampa. Plant City, I don't think there's anyone, in a senior position within the city of Plant City that's of Hispanic origin, yet Plant City, without the Mexican and the Central Americans that have migrated there for decades, it wouldn't be what it is today. So, so that's what I tell them whenever I do voter registration drives. Like, you should register and vote because we have got to turn that 1/3 of the county population that's constituted by Hispanics into political power. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time.
Yeah, you have a lot of people in this county that really want to build out, and like they want to urbanize, and I understand the desire to urbanize, and I understand the desire for development and everything else. And there's smart development. And if I had any faith in the committees and the councils that are supposed to approve the build outs that they were approving, and they would actually require trees to be in the line, and they wouldn't be able to kill certain kinds of tree, and they would actually do what they were supposed to do, which would be to say no to these architectural plans and give us something that's actually working. Then yeah, I could understand it, but they're not doing it. They're just agreeing to anything and everything. And I'm not going to say that it's a corruption thing. I don't think so. I just think they want the development just because they want the development, and that's going to cause huge problems
That
later
in
on.
itself is a corruption thing, though.
Of course. Why else is Ken Hagen pushing so hard for this stadium to be built in Ybor City?
Well, I want my house to increase in value, and we live close to Ybor City, so we'll go to every. If they put that stadium, and Laura and I already talked about it. If they put that stadium in Ybor City, we're buying season tickets.
Guys, how many of you out there and sitting here have used the streetcars through Ybor?
Oh, for recreational purposes or for transportation purposes?
Transportation.
Maybe,
None.
Maybe 4 times in my life.
But we just spent how many million on it?
Oh, yeah. No, I know. The Governor Scott, right before, literally as he was stepping out the door, gave Hart, I think it was $2 million. And what did they decide to do with those $2 million?
Free rides.
Free rides for everybody.
So
that's
now,
what they did with $2
so now
million.
they can say that, look, our ridership has increased.
Yeah.
Hey,
of course,
Don't get
because
me
it's
wrong.
free.
I've been on it. I've been on it since then.
Look, all the
and
people-
the ridership, yeah, it's free,
It's
and
fr-
so
it's-
it's packed.
But-
and so whether you're talking about a boat parade or Gasparilla or or even concerts at the arena, people are using it. But of course they're going to use it because it's free.
All the people that live around Ybor City that can't afford to go see a play at the Straz can take the streetcar and go stand outside and wave to all the people that
The streetcar doesn't even go.
Because it's
It doesn't
free.
even go
You
to the
also,
Straz.
you also,
No, it doesn't.
they also
That's
built,
my point,
I know,
guys.
They built
I
a
know.
system.
That's the point.
They built a transportation
They built a
system.
system that
that's
goes
not-
to one
That's
way.
not closed.
It's a
That's not a
tourist
closed
attraction.
system.
It's a tourist attraction.
It goes to Vennickville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, now it does. I mean,
Before there was a Vennickville.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not even a closed system. It's just up. It's like it's through and out. And like,
Now they're wanting to
understand.
expand it back up
I
north
have
to
no idea how they're
to
going to expand
Armature
it. It's going to
Works.
have to like go weave and wave and around there. I would be more willing to put money behind that. At least close the system somehow, and then figure out a way to go there. But don't lie to me. Don't tell me it's moving people. It's commuting. Someone used commuting. I'm like, you are a liar.
Nobody's using it to commute.
to commute.
Yeah.
A liar.
Yeah. All right, everybody. On that note, thank you to Hector Gonzalez who joined us via Clubhouse. Don't forget, we do put our Clubhouse room live every Monday night around 7 o'clock as we do the show. So you can join us there. You can follow me, Jonny Torres, on there. Also, don't forget, if you missed any of the show, you can catch the video version on YouTube or Facebook, and then you can catch the audio version of our podcast at any of the tech overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and Samsung podcast platforms. Our numbers for the audio version of the podcast are phenomenal. I think we are now back up into number one into the 120s in terms of downloads.
Look at that.
Podcasts in the country.
In spite of what you tried to do.
I wasn't expecting the conversation to go in the way they did. However, Scott, what is your one last thing?
Oh, my God.
My last thought is, and I don't know why this has been in my crawl lately, but no new taxes.
Ooh.
We are bringing in more tax revenue to Hillsborough County than we ever have in history. I didn't say read my lips.
Okay, Papa
But
Bush.
I am looking at you and I am saying, I will say it now and I will say it then. No new taxes. Stop the waste. Stop the stupidity. No new taxes.
I like it. All right. While Anibal prepares to express his traitorship for the motherland of the United Kingdom, I want to go ahead and just say that lately I've been watching what's going on with all this crypto stuff. Obviously, still volatile, but there was an interesting story, two interesting stories. One, Apple investing a ton of money into cryptocurrencies, NFT in the metaverse. There's going to be some longevity there. The other being that the family who recently cashed out on a lot of their Bitcoin investment or cryptocurrency investment has since left the United States and moved to Portugal, where they have a 0% tax on cryptocurrency. And so, again,
Are they conservatives? And do you have their phone number?
If they're moving to Portugal to avoid taxes,
their tax liability was in the seven figures. I remember reading the story. It made sense for them to move.
Sure.
We lost. Who was the other founder of Facebook?
The Brazilian kid.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name.
He sold his stock and moved to Singapore because of the tax implications.
Yeah.
So again, it makes sense if you don't want to take that much of it.
I think once you hit a certain bracket, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
The United States doesn't make any sense anymore.
Well, it's a very high bracket,
right,
for you to get there.
Sure. No, of course.
Yeah. There are very few countries that you can move to.
Well, I guess we won't be worrying about that.
No, definitely not.
Not here.
All right. On behalf of Anibal, David Cabrera, Scott Levinson.
I don't get my one last thing.
Sorry, I forgot. Go ahead. Go ahead, trader. Red coat. Come on, bring it on.
So I don't know why you're being so hostile to me, Jonathan Torres.
I got your red coat in the back. Go ahead.
It's not that big of a deal. Anyways, my final one last thing is to congratulate Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, celebrating her 70th anniversary of ruling her population. It's been a long ride. I think she's doing a great job. I love what she done. I love what she's done with the place. I would love for her to rule for 70 more years, but we all know that's probably not going to happen. But again, I think it's been a great run, and she's done a great job. And she also allowed for Camilla to be considered as Queen Consort when she does pass away. Don't get me wrong, I'm not crazy about Camilla
I get her and
myself.
Mrs. Doubtfire confused.
I'm not crazy about Camilla, but I will say that she has proven herself to be a servant of the people. And if you guys can take who did Harry marry?
It sounds like a sitcom. Who did Harry marry?
Meghan Markle?
Yes.
Oh, well, if you could take that hoe back to the UK, that'd be perfectly fine.
Wow.
Oh my God, Jesus.
Wow.
I don't care. Home wrecker.
Wow.
Home
The
wrecker.
comments expressed,
Swinging for the
comments
fences.
expressed are not necessarily that of the management or the guy running for office.
She is the pure example of the Yoko Ono of the 21st century royal family.
Nice.
She has broken up that friendship, and that she needs. I'm sorry, history will look down and frown upon her.
See, Lindsay and I appreciate that reference because we've been watching the Get Back documentary on Disney Plus. If you're a Beatles fan, it's a great documentary.
Well, some of us were around to actually hear their new
If you're
stuff
not,
come
it is
out.
just like any other Peter Jackson project. It is way too long, but I loved it.
I watched the Janet Jackson one. That was pretty cool.
I did not see that one.
I
was
don't.
cool.
I don't have a red pashmina, Kim. I apologize.
No, you have a red coat.
I don't like the color red. As a Republican and a conservative, you would think I would like the color red. I don't like the color red. I'm a blue guy.
And on that note, thank you so much for watching The Yard Sign, everybody. We'll be back Monday night, 7 o'clock. It's Scott Levinson at votescottlevinson.com. All right?
No.
Make sure you visit the website. Make a donation.
Vote.
I said votescottlevinson.com.
No.
Oh,
It's
vote for.
No, it's votelevinson.com.
Oh. It's Anibal's fault.
How's it my fault?
Votelevinson.com.
Well,
How's it my
that would
fault?
explain the donations.
I would say we'd fix it in post, but that would imply that we have post-production.
We're
which we
not
don't.
moving in that direction.
So, oh my gosh. All right. Anibal David Cabrera will likely be back for next week. Thank you to him as always, though, for being on the show. I'm Jonny Torres. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Good night, everybody. Good night.